Welcome to the Global WarWatch Network. We're a little late on this one, but we're back with a major development. Pakistan has just launched airstrikes inside Afghanistan, hitting not just Kabul, but 3 other cities as well. So let's set the scene. On the night of October 9th, 2025, the quiet in several Afghan cities was just shattered. And we're not talking about a small border skirmish here. This was a coordinated attack with multiple simultaneous strikes. Think about it. They hit the capital, Kabul, and cities in Khost, Jalalabad, and Paktika. This was a very clear message, and it was delivered deep inside Afghan territory.
So the big questions are, what on earth triggered this cross-border attack? And maybe more importantly, what could it unleash next? These questions aren't just for political analysts to debate. The answers here could seriously define the stability of a region that's already, let's be honest, on a knife's edge. So let's get into it.
All right, first things first, what exactly happened on the ground that night?
Okay, so the story starts to unfold just before 10 p.m. local time. People in Kabul hear 2 huge explosions near a really well-known landmark, Abdul Haq Square. Right after that, witnesses start reporting the sound of aircraft overhead. That's the first clue, right? This isn't some kind of ground fight. And then the picture gets a whole lot bigger. Reports of airstrikes start flooding in from those other provinces we mentioned, and suddenly it's clear this was a widespread, very targeted operation.
So you gotta ask, who were they after? All signs point to one man, Noor Wali Masood. He's the head of the Pakistani Taliban, also known as the TTP. But this is where the story gets, well, murky. Masood was clearly the main target, the big prize, but his actual fate? It's still a total mystery. The TTP, of course, almost immediately put out an audio clip, supposedly of him, claiming he's alive and well. Now, we can't verify that, but what we do know is that the strikes definitely hit something, because at least 2 senior TTP commanders were confirmed killed in that Kabul strike.
And that right there brings us to the most crucial question of all. Why? Why do this now? Well, the answer really lies with the TTP itself. So for anyone who's not totally up to speed, the TTP, that's the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan, is not the same as the Afghan Taliban that's in power in Kabul. But, and this is a huge but, they're extremely close allies. Think of them as ideological brothers. The TTP's main goal? To overthrow the government in Pakistan and set up its own hardline state. And when they saw the Afghan Taliban take over Afghanistan, it wasn't just inspiring for them, it was like they'd been handed the blueprint for their own war.
And listen, this is not just some abstract theoretical threat. Just look at the raw numbers. In the last year alone, the TTP has launched over 600 attacks, mostly hitting Pakistani security forces. And get this, the number of attacks just this year, in 2025, has already blown past the entire total for all of 2024. I mean, from Islamabad's point of view, that's not just an escalation, it's a crisis that's spinning completely out of control.
And this really gets us to the heart of Pakistan's complaint, their core grievance. They are flat out accusing the Afghan Taliban of giving the TTP a free pass to use Afghanistan as a staging ground. The way Pakistan sees it, these attacks aren't just random. They're being planned and launched from safe havens right across the border. And they believe the Afghan government is either unable to stop it or, maybe worse, just plain unwilling.
So, as you can probably guess, the fallout from these strikes was immediate. And it didn't take long for this to blow up into a full-blown diplomatic crisis. Kabul's reaction? It was swift and it was furious. The Afghan Ministry of Defense did not pull any punches, calling the strikes a, quote, unprecedented, violent, and heinous act. And that warning they give about the consequences? That's a direct threat. They're making it crystal clear that if things get worse, they're putting the blame squarely on the Pakistani army. And Pakistan's response? Oh, it was a masterclass in saying something without really saying anything. It's not a confirmation, right? But it is definitely not a denial. The spokesman just pivots right back to their main complaint about the TTP using Afghanistan as a base and basically says, we'll do whatever we have to do to protect our people. It's a classic diplomatic standoff.
Now, this kind of standoff doesn't just happen in a vacuum. You have to understand, a single event like this, it has the potential to set off a chain reaction, to trigger a much, much wider regional crisis. So, what's the Afghan Taliban's next move? Well, analysts have pretty much boiled it down to 4 main options. First, they could do nothing, but that would make them look incredibly weak, both at home and abroad. Second, they could escalate, but quietly,
maybe by letting their own fighters slip across the border to join the TTP. The third option is the most extreme, just declare open war and unleash their forces. And then there's the fourth path, which is probably the least likely, but it's what Pakistan is hoping for. Maybe, just maybe, these strikes will force the Taliban to finally crack down on their TTP allies.
And if that wasn't complicated enough, there's another layer here: the timing. These strikes happened at the exact moment the Afghan foreign minister was in India for a high-profile visit. Now, for Pakistan's military, which has always been suspicious of India, this growing friendship between Afghanistan and India is like waving a red flag in front of a bull. The timing here is just too perfect to be a coincidence. It suggests these strikes weren't just about the TTP, they were also a message about the shifting alliances in the region.
But really, to truly understand why Pakistan would take such a huge risk, we have to zoom out. We have to look beyond just this one airstrike. Because what we're seeing here is really just a symptom of a much, much deeper crisis. Many experts are actually framing this as a three-front crisis for Pakistan. So, front number one is the war of ideas, the narrative war. Groups like the TTP are incredibly skilled at using propaganda to win people over. Front number two, massive gaps in governance. We're talking political chaos, economic hardship. All of this creates the perfect breeding ground for militancy to grow. And the third front is regional isolation. Having hostile borders with Afghanistan and India gives these anti-state groups safe places to hide and an endless supply of propaganda wins. You put all three of those together, and what you have is a state facing a fundamental crisis of its own legitimacy.
And so, that leaves us with the final and probably most important question. When a country's very right to rule is being challenged on so many fronts at once, can military strikes alone ever really solve a crisis that, let's face it, runs so much deeper than just terrorism?
We really appreciate you joining us for this breakdown. If you found this analysis helpful, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the Global WarWatch Network. It really helps us out.
But we really want to know what you think. What's the Taliban's next move? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below and join the conversation on our social media channels. All the links for that are right there in the description.